to Behind the Bricks. I am your host, Rachel L. Gary. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming an investor, flipper, professor, coach, and real estate mentor, known for collaborating with first-time investors to pool resources to buy back the block in underserved communities. Without further ado, and with the utmost pleasure, Ramo Bey. Did I leave anything out about you?
I don't know. That's it. I'm like, is this all me? I appreciate that. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure being on your podcast tonight.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to dive right in. So tell us a little bit about Ramo Bey and what made you go from being a former professor and at NIU and dean at Malcolm X to wanting to leave academia to actually start iFLIP Chicago?
That's a very good question. You know, I would say I never did leave academia. I still teach financial literacy, policy, and technology to our community, just not in that four-wall setting in a university setting. I'm an adult educator by trade, and so as you know, education can happen anywhere. And so yes, I taught leadership development for a few years at Northern Illinois University, and then I moved on to become an associate dean at Malcolm X College. And my background is always helping people navigate, through life, and especially adults. While I was a dean at Malcolm X College, I make really good, I make decent money, 6 figures, and this is back in early 2000. And one of the things that I didn't have, though, I had a lot of stuff, but the only thing I didn't have was time. My time, I worked 80 hours a week, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I didn't have time to spend with my family. I had 3 kids, and I had my daughter, she had a boyfriend for like 5 months, and I didn't even know. I mean, it was like way too much. I'm spending way too much time helping everybody except me at home, you know what I mean? And so I was looking for something to help me get my time back. One day, somebody introduced me, told me, hey, and they invited me out to one of those real estate, if you remember those real estate, I think they still doing those, it's like a free event at those hotel rooms, right? And so I just went with them to go just to support. Well, at the event, this one of the presenters, this real estate investor, was like, I know you guys think this is, not true, or all that stuff. He's like, that's why I brought my bank statement with me. And so he put the statement, he was real bold. He put his bank statement on the monitor and walked around with it. And what I saw was seven figures in the bank. And it wasn't Chase, I think it was Bank One at the time. And I was looking at it, and as he was talking about different ways to make money in real estate and how it's not that difficult, you just need the information. And all I kept thinking about besides all that is, that's 7 figures. And all I kept thinking about, if he could do that, I surely can do it. You know what I mean? And so in my mind, I was thinking, wow, this might be my way to get out of, the 4 walls. I can still do what I love to do, but maybe I can get some of my time back. And I end up having to pay, it's free initially, but if you want that whole workshop and everything, it was like $10,000 for the weekend. And you know what? I scrounged up that $10K, and I'm gonna tell you, that was the best decision I think I've ever made in my life. The information that I learned in those 3 days is my cornerstone of information that I teach in my boot camp right now. And that was literally 20 years ago when I first started in this business in 2003, 2004. And so the number one reason why I wanted to get into real estate really was to get my time back, to spend more time with my children, and still do the things I love, like teaching, but it was really about family.
Okay. So I want to expound a little bit on how I met Ramo Bey. So I happen to be one of these students that he taught in the iFLIP Chicago program. For people who are not new to my channel, but if you are, I started my real estate journey 3 years ago, and I made a choice and said that I wanted to build generational wealth. And I'm a person who I don't say I'm going to do something and just today is my day and I'm going in the world. So I invested in my future, and I went to a couple of meetups, a couple of those rooms, and it ends up being that I happened to see Ramo Bey on. He was on in Woodlawn. That's a community I grew up in, and he had a class out there. Now I don't know if he knows that this is what made me look him up. So he was out there. He had a class. He was walking along the street, and he was talking to the people. I was out there on something unrelated. However, I was just starting my journey. I had bought the book, Rehabbing for Dummies. So I had bought that book, and I heard what he was saying. And I said, okay, I got to find him. So I looked him up. I'll be honest, I'm one of these people I research. I research everything. I'll research stuff to death, because at the end of the day, I'm making an investment in my future. And to me, you don't make investments without having knowledge behind it.
Right.
So I found him. So he had a course. I was like, yes. So grabbed my wife, and we took his course.
That is an incredible story. I did not know that.
I know, you were on. I believe it was the place where you had a big yard. It was two. You were building a house. It was a one house you had next door, and the other where you were doing the excavation for the pouring the cement. Gotcha. And you were talking to the class.
New construction.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, that was a few years ago. Absolutely.
So I happened to walk past, and it was at the very infancy of my journey. Took the class. I'll say it was the best 10 weeks I've ever spent in my life.
Wow, thank you.
It was very reasonably priced, and it was so much knowledge packed into those 10 weeks. And I don't mean, and even though he said, he told us day one that he was from academia, from the classes, I didn't feel like I was in school. I felt like I was learning, and nothing personal to academia.
Right.
It's different when you're seeing a book as opposed to you are on a job site and you're actually physically able to touch. So not only was he teaching, so as I said, this is my testimony. I'm gonna give a copy of it.
Go ahead, testify.
So not only was he teaching in there, he provided us with a packet that gave us all the information. Showed us hands-on. I mean, I have videos that I'm going to make sure my VA puts on here where we were physically in buildings that he hadn't even purchased yet, where we were going over the numbers. We had a list of raw materials. We had a list of he explained to us what the square footage is, how to calculate it, how to determine what the windows, the soffits, the fascias, all of that. Now, I had a little construction background, but that was 20 years ago. So after 20 years, you barely remember what happened. So, right. But in those 10 weeks, I learned so much. And I think I've reached out to Ramo Bey several times since and just asked questions, and he is always, and I have to say, always humbly answered the questions, asked me if I needed more information each and every time. I end up buying 2 buildings that are across from a project that he was working on at the time. So that is awesome. So currently I own 4 properties that I'm currently rehabbing. So I'm not flipping them, I'm buying and holding. However, the fundamental teaching that he provided is what allowed me to be able to do it.
That is an awesome testimony. Listen, I had no idea, but I really appreciate it. It warms my heart to hear, stories like that you continued on, that you didn't give up. And now, look at you now, owning cash flow properties, doing podcasts. So I really congratulate you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. But I said a lot of homage is definitely paid for the people who helped me along the way. And the information that was in those 8 weeks, if there is anybody who's on the fence about iFLIP Chicago, don't be. It'd be the best investment. I don't care if he triples the price. You're going to get way more value from those 10 weeks than you're ever going to get in working with mentors who are going to run you through it. I gotta tell you a quick story. There was one class that we went to 5 different properties. we were going block to block to block to block. And even though we were running from property to property, it wasn't a run. It was a go to the property, we walk through, we talk about the numbers, talk about the rehab, and these were all in different stages of rehab. Some were brand new rehabs. I mean, he was just starting. Some were in the middle where you had the roughing in. Some of it you were on final inspections. But at the end of the day, it was that full round picture that allowed. I mean, I know there's anybody who took that class, even if they didn't do anything with the information as of yet, they had the best amount of information to be able to be with some action steps behind.
That's excellent. I appreciate that. Yes, that's basically the reason why I started iFLIP Chicago. One of the reasons was number one, I wanted to get my time and I wanted to, create generational wealth. This was about 7 years ago. I originally started 20 years ago in cash flow, buying cash flow properties, rehabbing houses in Roseland and Inglewood and buildings and refinancing and cash flow. But about 7 years ago, after the market crashed for me in basically 2012, I really had to start over. But about 7 years ago, when I wanted to get back, and I was like, this time I'm going to actually teach individuals how to do this, because what I kept seeing in our communities was everyone but us in our communities, in the south side of Chicago very specifically, because people were already invested in the north side, and now these same people are coming to the south side. Why? Because it's the next gold mine. And I was like, no, that should be us taking advantage of these opportunities, building our communities, profiting from our communities. It should be us. And that's one of the reasons why I put iFLIP Chicago together. And as you said, one of the premises of the boot camp is that you're not going to be able to learn this from a hotel. You're not going to be able to learn this from a classroom. You have to actually breathe this, smell it, touch it, and obviously learn. We have, books and, we had information like that we had to learn and stuff like that, but you have to be on site. And that's exactly why, I believe that most people love the program, is because they got a chance to actually be on site, smell it, see it, touch it, and actually learn that way, versus just, being in the classroom.
Okay. So part one is him teaching. So I know I alluded to a little bit about the collaboration of you collaborating with first-time investors to pool their resources. If you don't mind, can you expound a little bit on what was the step from actually teaching to actually working with a group of people to show them how to invest?
Right, and that was the next step. I wanted to just not just learn, because a lot of times, people just start taking these boot camps or go to these sessions and they just like the information. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's more than just liking the information. We want you to actually do something. And so what I did was I put together a joint venture where I pulled together all of my resources, all my general contractors, attorneys, licensed agents, myself, and I shared with the individuals who come out of the boot camp, the graduates, like, listen, if you want to joint venture with us, you bring the necessary capital that I taught you that you need. I'll bring all the infrastructure and the resources, and let's collaborate. And I'll walk you hand in hand on your first flip. And that's just been, an amazing journey for a lot of individuals. It hasn't always been peaches and cream, okay? But for the most part, a lot of people have made money, and a lot of people have been very excited about just having an opportunity to invest, and not feel like they're by themselves when they start, but they actually have an advocate, a mentor, that's going to be with them every step of the way, right from start to all the way to finish when they sell it.
Okay. So which one? So give us which one was the biggest project? Because I remember during the time of me taking a class, there were a group of people that got together and actually bought three properties in Woodlawn that they bought together. If I might be incorrect, but
yes,
I remember.
We've had multiple big. It's been so many. We finished multiple. If you want to stick in the Woodlawn area, we had a team that got together and did a 3-flat deconversion in the Woodlawn area, and we deconverted it into a single family home. And so it's one of the really nicest homes in the Woodlawn area. Absolutely very beautiful. And one of the things we like to do is, increase the value of our communities that has been devalued for so long. Woodlawn community has been devalued for so long, and now you see a lot of different Obama's library, the hospital is there now, and you have so many different amenities now, and the values are going up. Well, when we recognize that, and it's like, okay, here's our opportunity to get together with some individuals, some joint venture members, some graduates, and let's take advantage. Let's be a part of this rising values in our communities and be able to put new homeowners in our communities, and we can say that it's us. We had an opportunity. We're one of the reasons why this community is emerging, because we've actually developed. So we've done a lot of projects in the Woodlawn area, but we've done projects in South Shore. Washington Heights is one of our main hubs, where we are the first development company to sell a home over $300,000 north of 95th Street in a Washington Heights community. So no home had ever sold over $300,000 ever, and that was back about 4 years ago. And now that our house sold for $310. Now the top house now is just sold for $425,000. So in 4 years, the equity of other people have jumped. Not only at whatever it was at the 300,000, but we've created another 125,000 in equity just in 4 years, and that does a lot to a homeowner now, because they can actually pull equity out of their home to send their kids to school or fix their roof or whatever they want to use. If they want to start a business, now they have some equity in their home because of the things that we started about 4 years ago in the Washington Heights community.
And I want to say that is awesome to hear, because there have been so many communities. I'm born and raised in Chicago. I'm from the south side of Chicago. Nothing wrong with the West Siders. My wife is from the West Side. So,
right.
But I'm from the south side of Chicago. I grew up in the Woodlawn area and in the South Shore area. So I grew up on 70th and Merrill. That's where I lived there for many, many years. My aunt and my cousins still live in the area. And I have seen that community change so many times. Like it was a point in time where if you were in that little pocket between, I'll say 67th and Stony to 71st and Jeffrey, that was the creme de la creme of community.
Yes, that's the Highlands. That's the Highlands. Yes.
Right. But at this time, there are so many decrepit properties over there that I was looking at buildings that have definitely been, I don't want to be decimated.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, when I went in that neighborhood, you were like, okay, Jesse Jackson lived in that area. He was part of the block club for the area. I had met him on several occasions. And I said, just in the community, we're not talking about any event, just him just being outside his house.
Right, right.
And it just seems like the neighborhoods, they all change over time. And to hear that the Washington Heights community started getting value, value was gaining, just like in parts of Roseland, Pullum. I remember when Pullum and Roseland had the value in Roseland over 15 years had not changed.
You're right.
It was an area that, and I was reading more recently that the values are starting to increase because the investors that were investing in Pullum are not coming east.
Yeah. So west. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that in our community, the best thing we could do is, instead of moving out of the community, because I have to say, I was one of those people who moved out of the community. And when I look back, I think that the best thing I did was to go back when I decided to invest.
Yes.
I decided to invest in the community. This is before the Obama. This is when the Obama Center was still being talked about or thought about. And I decided to invest in a community in which I grew up in. And to me, that to me is the blessing that I think that I was able, when I started to being able to invest, I was able to invest where I grew up.
Yeah, that's the piece. That's the piece. We always like to encourage people to come back and put that money back in, and that way, I think my mentor said, and people know, a rising tide lifts all boats. A rising tide lifts all boats. So once somebody comes in and is able to see that, we all get elevated. So the things that you're doing, people get elevated now. They see you're from the community. You've been there all your life, and now you're redeveloping the community, and so you get to see it firsthand and say, I was a part of something, very, very special for these communities. So it's a blessing to be a part of something like that.
Absolutely. So we'll change gears a little bit, because I want to make sure, I try to make sure I give people as much information as possible. And I always want to talk to people who are boots on the ground, still doing it today. Because things from year to year, month to month, change in every community. So with the volatility in the market, with interest rates, lumber prices, all of those things, would you still say that right now is the best time to buy? And if so, or if not, why?
Yes, I would say yes and yes. It's always a good time to buy. For a buyer, for example, you have higher interest rate. Yes, but you're going to get more of a deal from investors like myself, because there's not as many buyers in the market because of the higher interest rate. We want to sell fast, so we're willing to cover, closing costs and stuff like that. However, if buyers wait, the cost of these houses, if the interest rates go down, what's going to happen to the actual cost of these houses? They're going to go up. And so it's always a good time to buy. But as an investor, it's never a bad time to buy. It's all about what you're buying, where you're buying, how much you're buying it for, putting your numbers together. It's always going to be houses that need work to them. It's always going to be houses that, that are going to help people avoid foreclosure and buying tax sales and estate sales. It's going to be houses everywhere, right? Everywhere. So it's always a great time as an investor to buy. One of the things that COVID did, we made a lot of money in COVID, but right after COVID, what happened to the prices for lumber and everything? They skyrocketed, right? It hurt a lot of us because we were in the middle of our projects and when prices went up. So can you imagine what that did to our bottom lines? Right. And then right after prices go up, what happened? The interest rate went from 3% to 7% in the same year last year. So as an investor, you have to have thick skin and you have to endure sometimes those rough patches. And the way you endure is you become educated on what's going on in the market. So now you can't just buy homes at any old price anymore, thinking like we did 3 years ago, we could sell them at whatever price because houses just selling with 2%, 3% interest rates. You got to be more creative. You gotta negotiate a little bit more. You gotta ask. You got to be a little bit more strict on where you buy. Before, we wasn't as strict on where we bought because people were buying everywhere because of the low interest rates, which has a low mortgage. Now that's not the case. Buyers are more picky. You have to understand the psychology of the buyer now too. What do they want in the homes? What are they willing to sacrifice because of the higher interest rate? So it's a lot of things you have to know as an investor, and that's where the education comes. If you're a new investor and you don't understand their psychology around it, man, you could be in a world of trouble. So we like to teach people also not just learning, the ins and outs and layout and design, but also a psychology behind real estate investing as well.
Awesome. So with that being said, what different types of loan products, as I said, I try to make sure I educate them on the different types of loan products that are out there. If you can just expound a little bit on what type of loan products have you used, and which ones would you recommend for different and like the different scenarios that will go with that? And you don't have to expound on all of them, but if you give them a couple, just so they have some kind of idea.
Well, the best thing, if you're a fix and flipper like myself, for the most part, you always want to get hard money, private money lending, because those are short-term loans that you don't have to go through all the regular conventional qualifications for, like going to Chase or BMO or Bank of America. They're going to ask for tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, all of that type of stuff. You have to have a certain credit score or whatever. But when you're dealing with rehab funding, the asset is in the house. So they really look at the house to find out if that's the value. The only thing they look at you for is, do you have the money to come to the table? Because the rehab lenders are going to leverage the majority of the home themselves. I mean, you as a buyer, as an investor, you're going to leverage the rehab lender because they're going to pay the majority. So typically, you're going to come to the table with only 20%, for example, of the purchase price. And the rehab lender is going to come to the table with the rest of the 80, and they're going to give you 100% of the rehab. So, for example, if a house, costs $100,000, they only expect you to put $20,000 down, and they'll cover the rest of the $80,000. And if the rehab was $100,000, they'll also cover the whole $100,000. So if a whole job was $200,000, they're coming to the table with $180,000, and you just $20,000. That's, to me, is incredible. That's how you leverage. And guess what? They're not asking for a 680 credit score. I've seen them do as low as 520. They only ask them for your bank statements and obviously your business. You have to have a LLC or organization. You have to have a business because it's not in a personal, you're not in your personal name, it's a business name. But I always recommend leveraging, even if you have the cash, in my opinion. If you're not like $1 million in cash, then okay, yeah, go ahead and buy these in cash because you're saving interest.
Make it happen.
Right, save your interest. But if you're not like that, leverage the bank so you won't have to come to the table with 80, 90, 100,000 at closing and leverage the bank's money. Right? OPM, always use other people's money, in my opinion, when you're dealing with fix and flip. And also when you're doing cash flow like yourself, they have to do debt service, DSCR loans for developers who are interested in rehabbing and then refinancing and then putting tenants in for cash flow. Man, that is an incredible thing. Why? Because they're utilizing the rents from these houses as part of your income to qualify. So they're not necessarily looking at you to qualify. For example, they're looking at the actual building and will the rents cover the mortgage, the future mortgage, insurance, taxes, and stuff like that. So a DSCR loan is for people who are in cash flow like you, and a hard money loan or private money loan or rehab funding is for individuals who do like the fix and flip.
So those were just 2 gems. So I want to make sure you guys rewind that portion because he dropped some gems there that are going to help you be successful. Now, I would say for me, I've done 2 different types of loans. I did a 203K loan, which I bought a building with, and I did a private money loan for one of the buildings. So I actually I put 10% down. The person, it was a private money lender, so it wasn't just a hard money lender. It was a private money lender, and their terms were 10% down because I had already done a rehab. I had already done a rehab, and I had already stabilized that rehab where there were tenants in it. I had a waiting list because of how I was. Because what I did was I did my properties as I rented them as rooms. So I already had a waiting list for a new property. So it was. So I was working with organizations because I'm big on helping people very much. So Ramo Bey resonated with me. That's why I reached out to him. I do veteran transition housing from homeless to getting into their homes. So I do transitional housing. So I already had a waiting list. So when I went to them about, okay, I found a property. I don't have all the money right now. It's tied up into something else. I got like 15% down. And they was like, so what are you going to do? So I showed them the waiting list, showed them how much the rents were going to be, showed them the organizations that will be paying those rents for 6 months. They were like, where do you sign? I'm going to be honest. They never even asked me for a bank statement.
Wow.
But they did ask me for the information for the previous for the other property I had.
Right.
They wanted to see those numbers. They wanted to see the letters from the organizations, but they never even asked me for my personal bank statements. I had the money.
The asset is in the building. The asset is in the cash flow. So they know they can get their money back. What do you care? You just need to do what you're supposed to do so they can get their money. That's all they caring about. And as long as you've done it one time and they see that you've been successful, It's up from there, as my son would say. Right.
Is there anything else that you want to add to our people out there and making sure that they make the best investment decisions?
Well, I would say, it's not always peaches and cream. We've lost money. People, the market's bad. We have to take a long time to sell because obviously it's not as many buyers on the market. So I don't want people thinking, hey, you're always going to make 50,000 on your first flip and all. Listen. Enjoy the journey. Learn, in the beginning. Make better decisions as you continue to purchase and flip. Always attach yourself to mentors and coaches. Never think you know everything. For me, Frank Montreux is one of my biggest mentors in this business. Frank Montreux, I'm not sure if you know him. He's with Keller Williams. Business a long time. He's the reason why I invested in the South Shore and the south side of Chicago. And as you know, he's not even black, right? But he showed us the way 30 years ago of what it should look like when you're rehabbing. And I'm always learning, either from him, from books or whatever. So I would say never stop learning in this business. Always attach yourself to people who are doing it, and always have a heart to help people in the community. That's what I would share.
Yeah. Because when I last time I met Frank, it has to be about 3. But I took your class 2 years ago, man. Time is flying. I gotta say that when you say getting time back, time is flying. So it had to be like 4 years ago. He was in Blue Island buying property in Blue Island. That's when I met him. Yeah. And it happened to be I went to another RIA group. As I said, I'm big on. I dive all the way in. I want to clearly understand. I tell people, just very similar to what you just said. Learning the terminology isn't the way. Isn't the only. You have to know how to do it. You have to have an understanding. And understanding. Books are great. They give you an understanding. Give you you'll have a level of knowing that it exists.
The framework. They'll give you the framework. Yeah,
absolutely. Gives you the framework. But if you don't hands-on do it, in my rehab, I had challenges, and challenges beyond belief. I had to fire a general contractor, get a new general contractor. But I'll say this, because I wish I could get up right now, because I still have Ramo Bey's book over here, where he was talking about sheets of drywall, talk about how much everything costs. And when my contractor came to me with the bid, I asked questions, and asking the question was more so, I know a little bit more than
the average, right?
The average person. I had a little more information. So when they came to me with a bid for, it was like $70,000 for drywall, I asked the question.
Wow.
So I said, so why so much for drywall? Drywall is about $6-7 a sheet, and this is the amount of square footage.
Right.
Big changes. So that contractor was immediately out, because I knew they were trying to scam. I mean, and just said it was just that basic. Because like I said, when I went through the class, we went through buildings from where you were deconverting, and I was deconverting in a 2-unit. So it happened to be, it was a 2-unit on Maryland that we went through, and we were talking through the whole project. This is 10 blocks away, like 7 blocks away from where I bought property from. So it was very eye-opening, because if I hadn't had that information, I'd have just taken that bid.
You just accepted it. Right. That's one of the other reasons why, especially, for people who are new, contractors will take advantage of you. That's just, it is what it is. That's why it's very important. Once you find a good contractor, you got to hang on to them, because it's crazy out here. Definitely.
So with all of this great knowledge, if you can do me a favor, how can people get in touch with you, and what do you offer? So people, I want you guys to listen to what he offers and listen to the things that he has, and your information will be in the show notes, but tell them what you offer, what you have out there, and how can they find you?
Well, actually, the best thing now is I kind of changed up the format for our boot camp. Now it's all it's called iFLIP University. It's our Facebook group now, our private group, and it's a monthly fee of only $50 a month. but it includes a boot camp in that, where we go out field training, all the training that you get in the 10-week boot camp. Now it's a lot of that is virtual and also includes the field training, $50 a month, but it also includes monthly and weekly one-on-one calls, live Q&A. It includes specialized training. We had training on creative financing. We had training on just last month on Airbnbs. We had training last month on how to use your life insurance to create wealth. So it's not just regular fix and flip. It's all about cash flow. We have right now, I have a 4-week training that's in our iFLIP University on our 10K challenge. What is our 10K challenge? That I'm teaching individuals how to buy 2 to 4 unit a year for the next 10 years and to cash flow $1,000 per unit, which is just $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year cash flow in the next 10 years. And the reason I like it 10 years because I want people to understand this is generational wealth. This is not quick, get rich quick. And so that's what we're teaching right now, along with everything else. So just all you have to do is, if you're on Facebook, reach out to me, Ramo Bey. You can inbox me or you can call me at 312-508-1737. That's 312-508-1737. Or you can email me at ramobeyfunding@gmail.com. That's ramobeyfunding@gmail.com. And of course, Rachel will have that information as well that you can get in contact with me. But that's what we're doing right now. It's it's a lot of people involved with it. And it's a private group. That way I can spend one-on-one with you, or you can learn throughout the group. And we have all these different specialized trainings all month long. So $50 a month is like, you can't beat it.
No, not at all. And I want to say that, because I will tell you this, you're going to get way more than you would get from, I've been through, I would say, Ramo Bey training was not the first training I had. It was the last though. So after his training, I felt that I was able to go forward. Now I had paid, I want to be, can I be a little transparent with him, Ramo?
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, okay. Sister, go ahead.
Okay, so Ramo Bey was $850 at the time, and that was for the 10-week course. Now, the previous course I had taken, I want to be honest, I had paid 10 grand for the course. Ooh. 10 grand. The course was over a period of 6 weeks, and it had some information, but it did not have as much information. How about this? I felt I needed another course after. And I'm an action taker. So I'm not one of these people who I just gather knowledge, and I don't do anything. I'm one of these people who I take that information and I run. After that 6 weeks, I still felt I was lost and still needed help. So I took Ramo Bey. So I was walking down the street, and from what I heard him say, because he was talking to his students, I wasn't part of the class. But I came in, I told my wife, I said, we got to find this guy.
That is incredible. That's still so incredible that you just walk by, just by happenstance, while I'm in Woodline, you just walk past. Yes. That's crazy.
Yes, and it happens to be one of the people. One of the people in the class, I still knew her. So I reached out to her. I said, "What is his name? What is it?" Because I didn't even know your name. I said, "What is his name, and where do I find him?" She said, "Oh, here's the information." She sent it to me. So I that was probably the quickest email I've ever sent in my life. But
wow.
But I would say it was the most beneficial email. So at the end of the day, that information, it'll be in the show notes. You are not going to regret it. So if he's offering now, it's $50 a month, and you're going to get more, you are not going to want to miss it. I mean, and I'm going to tell you, honestly, I did not talk to him about this beforehand. This was not part of the show notes. I'm big on, I get show notes, but right now, we're at a point in time in our lives where we can make a difference. And if you have people like Ramo Bey who are out here ready to give you the knowledge, ready to help you along and mentor for $50 a month, that is $600 a year. I would tell you right now that I might take the class because there's still, as he said, you are always learning. You are always evolving. And I am still in the real estate game. And there are still things I want to learn, know, and develop. And as I said, I've asked him questions since. that class. And those questions they really weren't even tied to the class. They were about an investment I was getting ready to do.
Right.
So, and he gave me an answer, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I might get into it just because there are other things that I'm doing in real estate, and you never know what you don't know.
Right.
You never know what you don't know. And being in the room with people who are doing it on an everyday basis keep you fresh. So
keep you fresh, and they have resources as well.
Absolutely.
You never know who's in the room. I tell you that much.
All right. So
who's in the room?
Final question for today is, what goals do you have for yourself for this year, the next 3, and the next 5?
Well, this year we went through a lot of transition last year. This year the goal is to flip about 10 homes this year. But within the next 3 years, we are expanding our business to Texas and Georgia. Right now, I am in Georgia. I live in Georgia, and my youngest son lives in Texas. So in the next 3 years, I'll answer this both for 3 and 5 years. We're expanding to Texas and Georgia and doing mostly new construction. And so because now it's wide open, a lot of these states have, relaxed their zoning laws. And so you're seeing a lot of new construction build up for multi-units and single family homes. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next 3 to 5 years, taking advantage of lots of land development, openness in Georgia, the same thing in Texas. So that's what we're going to be doing, and definitely look forward to now and putting my sons together. So now they're part of the business as well. And so this is going to be a really fun time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you once again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And to all of you guys out there, I want you guys to be up, out, and moving to the greatness we all know lies within who? You.